Okay, so today I'm going to show you what the use effect is, how you can use it, and what are the different ways you can use it. So let's get started. Why even use a use effect, right? Data fetching is one of the reasons why you would use use effect to first load the page, then the use effect triggers, and then get the data, and then put that data into the state, and then the state re-renders the component and the data is added to the front end. So use effect can come in handy when data fetching and also manipulating the DOM, which like I said. So let's get into some examples of how the use effect works. And this is just the name of the component I gave. This is not the use effect, okay? So I've prepared a small example. I have a use state, initial value 0. It's just a counter, is incrementing and decrementing the value of the state. And it has an on-click event. It's incrementing and decrementing. And the value is being displayed here. So how does the use effect work in all of this, right? So the first thing is that the use effect will run after your component has rendered, okay? So to give you an example of that, and you'll see that the component rendered first and then the React effect rendered. Okay, so this is the console log that I did, and it's not inside of the use effect, it's outside. So it's in the component. So the component rendered first and then the use effect ran, and inside of it was the console log that ran. Okay, so the use effect triggered after your component was done rendering, not before. So that's one thing you need to keep in mind. The use effect runs after your component has rendered. Second thing is that the way the use effect is written, it's like this. You use the use effect hook, and then inside of it you put a function, an arrow function, and then it takes two more things that are a empty array, which is known as the dependency array, and also a return, which also takes a function, the arrow function. Okay, so this is the way a use effect is written, and I'll be going through all of these things. So you've seen how the use effect works, but in this example I'm going to show you that if you do not have a dependency array, what happens, right? So I do not have a dependency array in this, but as you can see, if I update my state, it will trigger the use effect each time when the component is re-rendered. So that's how the use effect works if you do not have a dependency array. But if you do not want to trigger the use effect each time the component is re-rendered, what you do is just add the dependency array, but you need to make sure it's empty. And if you see now, if I decrement this, you'll see the component is re-rendering, but my use effect is not triggering because it triggered the first time the component was loaded, but it did not re-trigger after the component was re-rendered. And that's because this array is empty. So that's how the use effect works if my array is empty. Let's go to our next example, which is I've basically set up a use state. Okay, it just has the name John, and this is a random name function which will just select one of these three names. Okay, and it's being triggered using this button, using the on-click event, and it's just displaying the name. Okay, so it's nothing really complicated. But what I want to show you was that if you have a use effect with a dependency array, but this time it has a dependency, which is this name in our state. Okay, so whenever this name changes, what is going to happen? It's going to trigger the useEffect each and every time, because we saw that if we have an empty array, it will not trigger the useEffect each and every time the component is re-rendered or the state is updated. But this time, when the state is updated and the component will re-render, this useEffect will get triggered again and again. So let me just reload this just so everything is clear. Okay, so as you can see, the component actually, you know what, let me just let me reload this. So as you can see, our component rendered first and then our useEffect triggered. But since we have a dependency in our array, which is the useState, so each time the name updates, then and only then will the useEffect trigger. Then and only then will the useEffect run. So I clicked it, but the name did not change. I clicked it again, did not change, the name changed. Okay, and now you can see that the component we rendered and now our useEffect ended up getting triggered because the name inside of it changed, inside of our state changed, and that update to our state ended up triggering our useEffect. Okay, so that's how a dependency inside of your useEffect will trigger whatever is inside the useEffect each and every time it's changed. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. So this seems more complicated, and I'm going to cheat this example and then I'll come back. So I've changed this example a little bit, just removed everything else. The count is still updating the state, and when the state updates, it's triggering the useEffect. Okay, so the only thing I changed is I've added console logs to show you how this return works. Okay, so the way the useEffect is working with the return is that your component renders first, then the useEffect will run after your component is done rendering. Then each time the component is re-rendered, what happens is the useEffect will run, but the return will run from the previous render first, and then the useEffect will run. So that's how it works, and I'm going to give you an example of this. So let me just refresh the page, and you'll see that the component rendered first, then the React effect triggered, and now when I update my state, the component will re-render, but you'll see how the console log will work now. The component rendered first, but the React effect return ended up triggering first, and this is the return from the previous render, and then the React effect ended up triggering. Okay, that's how this works. So I hope you like this tutorial. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers right now, and then we'll start creating full stack projects. So help the channel get to 1,000 subscribers. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.